42 years ago, they bled for glory. Now the battle is over and the transformation is staggering. How did the world's most powerful cast end up decades later? We're diving deep into the triumphs and tragedies of the Conan, the Barbarian stars. From Hollywood icons to forgotten names, this is the ultimate then and now tribute you've been waiting for. Don't blink or you'll miss the most shocking reveals. Arnold Schwarzenegger as Conan. Born on July 30th, 1947 in Thal, Austria, the legendary bodybuilder first brought the iconic warrior to life on the big screen in the 1982 epic Conan the Barbarian. At the age of 34, Schwarzenegger's portrayal of the fierce sword-wielding Cimmerian became a massive cultural touchstone, launching his Hollywood career and single-handedly popularizing the sword and sorcery genre in the 1980s. His towering physique and intense screen presence defined an archetype of the invincible action hero that remains deeply embedded in cinematic history. Despite playing a stoic, brooding barbarian driven primarily by vengeance and primal instincts, Arnold Schwarzenegger in real life was incredibly extroverted, charismatic, and a shrewd, forward-thinking businessman. This contrast was profound, as he had to suppress his natural charm and gregarious personality to embody the grim warrior. Early in his acting career, he faced intense professional hardships. Hollywood producers and agents frequently rejected him, telling him his impossibly muscular physique was too freakish. His thick Austrian accent was a massive barrier, and his long name was a total liability. He had to constantly fight against the struggle of being typecast as a mute muscle man or an unthinking brute working tirelessly to prove he could find leading roles and sustain a diverse cinematic career. Schwarzenegger went on to shatter those early expectations, eventually dominating the global box office with blockbusters like The Terminator, Predator, and True Lies, and later transitioning to politics to serve as the governor of California from 2003 to 2011. His personal life also saw intense public scrutiny, most notably his 2011 separation and eventual divorce from Maria Shriver, following the revelation that he had fathered a child with their longtime housekeeper. As of 2026, at the age of 78, he remains a deeply influential public figure, balancing his time between acting in projects like his television series, FUBAR, publishing motivational books, and ardently advocating for environmental reforms and fitness. He continues to actively engage with his massive fan base, enjoying a legacy as one of Hollywood's ultimate success stories. James Earl Jones as Thulsa Doom. Born on January 17, 1931 in Arcaboutla, Mississippi, the legendary actor brought a chilling gravitas to the screen in the 1982 fantasy epic Conan the Barbarian. At the age of 51, Jones's portrayal of Thulsa Doom, the mesmerizing and ruthless leader of a snake cult, became a cinematic touchstone. His performance provided a powerful, eloquent antagonist whose philosophies on the riddle of steel and sheer on-screen presence helped launch the sword and sorcery genre into mainstream success, setting a high bar for fantasy villains that is still referenced today. Despite playing a silver-tongued, megalomaniacal cult leader, James Earl Jones was an introverted and intensely private individual who famously battled a severe childhood stutter, a trauma that left him nearly mute for 8 years of his youth. This quiet, self-conscious reality stood in stark contrast to the booming hypnotic cadence and physical intimidation he commanded as Thulsa Doom. While his legendary basso profondo voice ultimately became his greatest asset, it also led to professional hurdles. Jones often found himself typecast or primarily sought after for voiceover work, which at times made it difficult for him to secure dynamic physical leading roles on screen. His early career was also heavily marked by the grueling struggle against the racial prejudices of the mid-20th century entertainment industry, forcing him to fight twice as hard to establish himself as a serious dramatic lead. James Earl Jones continued to enjoy a legendary career on stage and screen, cementing his place in pop culture history by voicing Darth Vader in the Star Wars franchise and Mufasa in Disney's The Lion King, alongside beloved on-screen roles in Coming to America and Field of Dreams. He married actress Cecilia Hart in 1982, remaining with her until she died in 2016, and the couple shared one son. A highly decorated performer, he achieved coveted EGOT status and had a Broadway theater renamed in his honor in 2022. Jones passed away at his home in Pawling, New York on September 9, 2024, at the age of 93 from complications related to diabetes. His death prompted a massive outpouring of global tributes from former co-stars like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Mark Hamill, as well as major cultural institutions honoring the unparalleled legacy of a man who overcame childhood silence to become one of the most resonant and iconic voices in cinematic history. Max von Sydow as King Osric. Born Karl Adolf von Sydow on April 10, 1929 in Lund, Sweden. The classically trained actor was already a legendary figure of European cinema before stepping into the world of high fantasy. At the age of 51, von Sydow's portrayal of the melancholic and aging king of Zamora became a cultural touchstone for the sword and sorcery genre, lending a profound Shakespearean weight to the film. His commanding delivery and iconic monologue about the days of his youth elevated the movie's prestige, offering a depiction of weary royalty that was both theatrical and deeply memorable. For fans of the epic, his brief but powerful screen time defined a character that remains one of fantasy cinema's most revered figures. Despite the character's authoritative, booming, and extroverted nature, Max von Sydow was intensely private, self-described as a shy boy, and known by those who worked with him as the gentle, quiet polar opposite of the imposing figures he played. This contrast was a significant part of his personal journey. He originally turned to acting as a tool to overcome his childhood timidity. His Hollywood career was also marked by the struggle of being heavily typecast, which for a long time made it difficult for him to find the varied work he truly desired. Because of his towering 6'4" height, deep voice, and foreign background, American studios frequently pigeonhole him into playing sophisticated villains, cold aristocrats, or austere religious figures. A professional limitation that he openly admitted was incredibly frustrating, as he constantly battled to prove he could handle ordinary or comedic roles. Max von Sydow continued to work in television and film for decades, ultimately appearing in over 150 projects and earning 2 Academy Award nominations for his performances in Pele the Conqueror and Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. He embraced pop culture in his later years, taking on notable roles such as the Three-Eyed Raven in the hit series Game of Thrones and Lor San Tekka in Star Wars The Force Awakens. In 2002, he relinquished his Swedish citizenship to become a French citizen, enjoying a quiet personal life in Provence with his second wife, Catherine Brelet. Von Sydow passed away at his home in Provence, France on March 8, 2020, at the age of 90 from natural causes. His death was followed by a massive outpouring of tributes from the global film community, and his widow released an emotional public statement announcing his departure with a broken heart and with infinite sadness, marking a peaceful but deeply mourned end to a monumental 70-year career. Mako as Akira the Wizard. Born on December 10, 1933 in Kobe, Japan, the acclaimed actor first brought his commanding presence to the screen as the mystical chronicler in the 1982 fantasy epic Conan the Barbarian. At the age of 48, Mako's portrayal of Akira the Wizard became a cultural touchstone within the sword and sorcery genre. His eccentric energy, distinct vocal cadence, and unforgettable opening narration, "Let me tell you of the days of high adventure," elevated the film, offering a whimsical yet grounded counterbalance to the brutal action while cementing his character as a legendary and much parodied figure in fantasy cinema. Despite his character's eccentric, mischievous, and sometimes comical demeanor, Mako was fiercely serious, deeply disciplined, and passionately politically conscious in his real life. This contrast highlighted his immense acting range, but his professional journey was fraught with the immense struggle of being an Asian American actor in 20th century Hollywood. He faced severe professional hardships and systemic marginalization, frequently struggling to find work beyond demeaning caricatures, subservient tropes, and stereotypical villains. Frustrated by this rampant typecasting and the industry's refusal to offer multi-dimensional roles to Asian performers, he channeled his hardships into activism by co-founding the groundbreaking East-West Players Theater Company in Los Angeles, dedicating much of his life to fighting industry prejudice and creating a space where Asian actors could perform without creative limitations. Mako continued to work tirelessly in film, television, and theater for decades, eventually finding a massive new generation of fans through his iconic voice acting work as the villainous Aku in Samurai Jack, and the beloved deeply wise Uncle Iroh in Avatar: The Last Airbender. In his personal life, he remained devoted to his family and his craft, sharing a long marriage with actress Shizuko Hoshi, with whom he had 2 daughters. Mako passed away in Somis, California on July 21, 2006 at the age of 72 from esophageal cancer. His death brought a profound sense of loss to the entertainment world and spurred a deeply emotional aftermath. His legacy was memorably honored in the Avatar: The Last Airbender episode, The Tales of Ba Sing Se, which ended with a touching on-screen dedication in honor of Mako, directly following a scene where his character tearfully sings the mournful song Leaves from the Vine, a poignant tribute that continues to resonate with fans worldwide. Sandahl Bergman as Valeria. Born on November 14, 1951 in Kansas City, Missouri, the physically commanding dancer and actress brought the iconic warrior Valeria to life in the 1982 sword and sorcery epic Conan the Barbarian. At the age of 28 when she first took the role, Bergman's portrayal of the fierce blade-wielding Queen of Thieves became an instant cultural touchstone. Her athletic, unapologetic depiction of a fantasy warrior who fought side by side with Conan captivated audiences, earning her a Golden Globe for New Star of the Year. Valeria stood out not just as a love interest, but as an equal in battle, setting a massive new benchmark for strong female action heroes in cinema. Despite the character's brutal, bloodthirsty nature and rugged fantasy world survivalism, Sandahl Bergman's real-life background was rooted in the highly disciplined, elegant world of theater and dance. While Valeria was a hardened barbarian, Bergman was a graceful Broadway standout and a trusted muse to legendary choreographer Bob Fosse, known for her quiet professionalism. The transition to a rugged action star brought immense physical struggles. Because few stunt women could match her 6-foot stature, she was forced to perform her own perilous stunts, famously nearly severing a finger during a demanding sword fight. Professionally, the towering success of Valeria led to severe typecasting. Bergman found herself pigeonholed into Amazonian warrior and B-movie villain roles such as Queen Gedrin in Red Sonja and Spangle in Hell Comes to Frogtown, making it exceedingly difficult for her to find mainstream acting work or roles that utilized her extensive theatrical training. Bergman continued to work in television and film, making guest appearances on shows like Heart to Heart and Moonlighting, while also working as an instructor for the popular Firm series of exercise videos in the 1980s. She had her final on-screen performance appropriately returning to her roots as a dancer in the 2003 film The Singing Detective, before quietly retiring from the entertainment industry entirely in 2009. Following a past marriage to actor Josh Taylor, she has maintained a highly private personal life, rarely giving interviews and staying largely out of the public eye, aside from occasional appearances at sci-fi conventions. At 74, she is fully retired and continues to live a quiet, peaceful life in California, forever remembered by fans as one of the definitive action heroines of the 1980s. Gerry Lopez as Subutai. Born on November 7, 1948 in Honolulu, Hawaii, the legendary surfer and board shaper, properly known as Gerry Lopez, first brought the Hyrcanian archer and thief to life in John Milius's epic fantasy, Conan the Barbarian, 1982. At the age of 32, Lopez's portrayal of Subutai became a cultural touchstone within the sword and sorcery genre, offering audiences a genuinely competent and formidable companion rather than just a comedic sidekick. His performance resonated deeply with fans, solidifying the character as a loyal warrior whose archery skills and authentic friendship with Arnold Schwarzenegger's Conan left a lasting impact on 1980s pop culture. Despite playing a rugged, opportunistic thief who braved the brutal wastelands of the Hyborian Age, Gerry Lopez was actually the polar opposite of his character, a laid-back, deeply spiritual practitioner of yoga, known worldwide for his Zen-like calmness, riding the massive waves of the bonsai pipeline. This stark contrast made his venture into cinema a significant personal challenge. Having zero formal acting experience, when the director, a surfing buddy, offered him the part, Lopez was initially hesitant and struggled with the heavy demands of the craft, requiring intensive acting classes to prepare. Following Conan, his acting career was marked by the professional hardship of being heavily typecast into exotic tough guy or henchman roles in films like North Shore and Farewell to the King. Ultimately, he found it difficult to secure meaningful acting work in Hollywood that wasn't tied to these narrow archetypes, leading him to gracefully step back from the film industry. Gerry Lopez eventually left the Hollywood hustle to fully embrace his true passions, relocating his family far from the Hawaiian waves to the snowy mountains of Bend, Oregon. He authored books, continued to shape high-performance surfboards, and became an avid snowboarder. As of 2026, at the age of 77, he is alive and well-recognized globally as one of the most influential elder statesmen of surf culture. He continues to practice yoga, mentor young athletes, and advocate for environmental conservation. Though his time on the silver screen was relatively brief, Mr. Pipeline remains a beloved figure, balancing his legendary status in the ocean with the enduring cult classic legacy of his time as Conan's greatest ally. William Smith as Conan's father. Born on March 24, 1933 in Columbia, Missouri, the physically imposing actor first brought Conan to life in the 1982 fantasy epic Conan the Barbarian. At the age of 49, Smith's portrayal of the doomed but wise warrior patriarch became a cultural touchstone, particularly for his commanding delivery of the famous Riddle of Steel monologue. This foundational scene not only established the thematic core of the blockbuster film, but also cemented Smith's status as a formidable screen presence, contributing to a movie that launched Arnold Schwarzenegger's mainstream career and redefined the sword and sorcery genre for a generation. Despite the character's brutish nature and Smith's own massive 6'2", heavily muscled frame, his real-life personality was the polar opposite of the barbarians, bikers, and brawlers he played. William Smith was a profound intellectual. He held a master's degree in Russian from UCLA, was fluent in several languages, including German, French, and Serbo-Croatian, served in the military during the Korean War, and was a published poet. This stark contrast was a significant part of his personal journey, as his career was deeply marked by the struggle of being typecast. Because of his rugged looks and towering physique, Hollywood consistently boxed him into villainous or hyper-masculine roles, making it incredibly difficult for him to find work that showcased his sharp mind or softer, dramatic range. William Smith continued to work prolifically in television and indie films for decades, amassing nearly 300 credits before finally stepping away from screen acting in his late 80s. In his later years, he lived quietly with his wife of over 30 years, Joanne Cervelli Smith, and their 2 children, dedicating time to his poetry and lifelong passion for fitness. Smith passed away at the Motion Picture and Television Country House and Hospital in Woodland Hills, California, on July 5, 2021, at the age of 88, from an undisclosed cause, with later reports citing natural causes and a battle with Alzheimer's disease. His death prompted an outpouring of tributes from co-stars and cult cinema fans who remembered the Hollywood veteran not just for his legendary tough guy persona, but as a brilliant, gentle giant of the screen. Sven-Ole Thorsen as Thorgrim. Born on September 24, 1944 in Copenhagen, Denmark, the imposing strongman and bodybuilder made his feature film debut, stepping into the brutal world of Conan the Barbarian, 1982. At the age of 37, Thorsen's portrayal of Thorgrim, the giant hammer-wielding chief enforcer for the villainous Thulsa Doom, became an unforgettable element of the seminal fantasy epic. His sheer physical dominance and ruthless on-screen presence helped cement the film's gritty aesthetic, leaving a lasting cultural impact on the sword and sorcery genre and establishing him as one of the ultimate cinematic heavies of the era. Despite his intimidating physical stature and his character's brutal, bloodthirsty nature, Sven-Ole Thorsen is known off-screen as a remarkably intelligent, affable, and gentle individual. This contrast between his warm, real-world personality and his menacing on-screen persona was a recurring theme throughout his career. Professionally, he faced the undeniable hardship of severe typecasting, finding himself continually boxed into the role of the silent, hulking henchman or disposable, muscle-bound goon. For years, he struggled to secure varied work or substantial speaking parts in an industry that frequently chose to utilize him purely as a physical obstacle rather than a dramatic actor, making it difficult for him to break out of the restrictive, villainous giant mold. Thorsen eventually embraced his cinematic niche and went on to appear in dozens of blockbuster films, famously collaborating with his close friend Arnold Schwarzenegger in 15 different movies, including Predator and The Running Man, and delivering a memorable turn as Tigress of Gaul in the 2000 epic Gladiator. In his later years, he penned a successful Danish autobiography titled Sterk Mand I Hollywood, Strong Man in Hollywood, and transitioned to a quieter personal life, dedicating time to his lifelong passion for fitness and his love for dogs. As of 2026, at the age of 81, he is largely retired from the grueling demands of the action film industry, living comfortably while remaining a beloved and celebrated figure among genre fans and the bodybuilding community. Jorge Sanz as young Conan, born on August 26, 1969 in Madrid, Spain, the young actor began his career in the Spanish film industry before landing a pivotal role in the epic 1982 fantasy film Conan the Barbarian. At the age of 12, Sanz's portrayal of young Conan was brief but crucial, as his character witnessed the brutal murder of his parents and the destruction of his village at the hands of the evil Thulsa Doom. This traumatic opening sequence set the foundation for the entire revenge-driven narrative of the film, which went on to become a massive cultural phenomenon, defining the sword and sorcery genre for a generation, and launching the international career of his adult counterpart, Arnold Schwarzenegger. While his character was defined by a harsh, primitive existence and a singular quest for vengeance, Jorge Sanz's real life in the decades that followed was marked by the glamorous heights and subsequent turbulent realities of the Spanish entertainment industry. Following his early international exposure, Sanz became one of Spain's most sought-after actors and a celebrated heartthrob in the 1980s and 1990s, winning a Goya Award and starring in acclaimed films like Belle Époque. However, as he grew older, he struggled heavily with typecasting, finding it difficult to break away from his image as the handsome youth. When major roles began to dry up in the 2000s, Sanz faced significant professional and financial hardships, experiencing firsthand the fickleness of the film industry. Embracing his difficult reality with remarkable self-awareness, he co-created and starred in the critically praised meta-comedy series ¿Qué fue de Jorge Sanz? What Happened to Jorge Sanz, a brutally honest and fictionalized reflection on his own career, declined typecasting, and the struggle to find work as an aging former child star. In addition to his professional hurdles, Sanz has also faced significant personal and health challenges, notably suffering a heart attack in 2014, from which he successfully recovered. He has dedicated much of his time to his family, particularly advocating for his son Merlin, who was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis as an infant. Sanz has continued to sporadically take on roles in Spanish film and television, proving his enduring resilience with recent credits in projects like 2024's Por tus muertos. At 56, Jorge Sanz remains a highly respected and deeply grounded figure in Spanish cinema, navigating the complexities of his legacy while continuing to pursue his passion for acting on his own terms. Valerie Quennessen as the princess. Born on December 3, 1957 in Boulogne-Billancourt, a suburb of Paris, France, the gifted French actress first made her mark in European theater before transitioning to American cinema. At the age of 23, Quennessen took on the role of King Osric's daughter in the 1982 sword and sorcery epic Conan the Barbarian. Her portrayal of the rebellious, sensual, and ultimately lost royal whom Conan is tasked to rescue from the villainous Thulsa Doom became a memorable cornerstone of the cult classic. Despite her limited screen time, her ethereal beauty and striking presence left a lasting cultural impact, adding a necessary layer of emotional vulnerability and human stakes to the gritty, hyper-masculine world of the film. Despite the character's defiant and wild nature, Valerie Quennessen was a remarkably grounded, intelligent, and intensely private individual who was described as the polar opposite of the typical Hollywood starlet. This contrast was a significant part of her personal journey. She found the demands and superficiality of the film industry to be a profound challenge. Her brief career was also marked by the struggle of being typecast, as she actively fought against the one-dimensional French sex kitten image often forced upon European actresses by American studios. Frustrated by the lack of substantive roles and the overwhelming nature of public exposure, she experienced a professional disillusionment that led her to abruptly quit acting altogether shortly after the film's release, walking away from a promising career at the very height of her fame to seek a quieter existence. Valerie Quennessen spent her final years completely removed from the public eye, choosing to focus on her personal life and finding happiness in quietly raising her children alongside her husband in her native France. Tragically, her peaceful life out of the spotlight was cut devastatingly short. Quennessen passed away on March 19, 1989, at the age of 31 as a result of a fatal car accident on the autoroute de Normandie near Saint-Ouen-des-Champs. Her sudden death was followed by years of lingering mystery. Because she had retired and lived so privately without a widely published obituary, many of her international fans did not learn of her tragic passing until the advent of the internet over a decade later. She was laid to rest in the Cimetière du Montparnasse in Paris, leaving behind a brief but unforgettable cinematic legacy. Ben Davidson as Rexor. Born on June 14, 1940 in Los Angeles, California, the towering former professional football player brought the brutal henchman Rexor to life in the 1982 epic Conan the Barbarian. At the age of 41, Davidson's portrayal of the menacing, hammer-wielding villain and devoted follower of Thulsa Doom became a memorable fixture in the fantasy genre. The film was a massive box office success that launched a wave of sword and sorcery cinema and established Arnold Schwarzenegger as a global superstar. Davidson's imposing 6'8" physical presence and terrifying screen persona provided the perfect physical opposition to the titular hero, cementing Rexor as a culturally significant and unforgettable antagonist in 1980s action cinema. Despite playing a savage, bloodthirsty brute on screen and possessing a fierce reputation as an intimidating, hard-hitting defensive end for the Oakland Raiders, Ben Davidson's real-life personality was a stark contrast to his fearsome image. Off the field and away from the camera, he was widely described by friends as a gentle giant, a grounded family man, and a charismatic, intelligent individual who loved traveling across the country on his motorcycle. However, his massive stature and rugged looks led to significant professional hardships in Hollywood. His acting career was marked by severe typecasting, with studios almost exclusively offering him roles as silent heavies, thugs, or bouncers. This lack of variety made it difficult for him to find substantial acting work beyond playing the muscle, which ultimately stalled his trajectory in the entertainment industry. Ben Davidson largely stepped away from major film roles in his later years, though he remained a beloved pop culture figure, famously leaning into his tough guy persona for a highly successful string of Miller Lite beer commercials. He enjoyed a quiet retirement in San Diego, California, spending his time with his wife of over 50 years, Kathy, and their 3 daughters. Davidson passed away on July 2, 2012, at the age of 72 from complications related to prostate cancer. His death prompted an outpouring of tributes from both the sports and entertainment worlds, with major publications honoring his unique dual legacy as a cornerstone of professional football's gritty era and a beloved cult icon of the silver screen. Nadiuska as Conan's mother. Born Rozwithka Bertasha Smid Honsar on January 19, 1952, in Schierling, Bavaria, Germany. The actress later adopted the stage name Nadiuska and became a massive star in 1970s Spain. At the age of 30, Nadiuska's portrayal of Conan's mother in the 1982 epic fantasy Conan the Barbarian left a lasting mark on cinematic history. Although her screen time was brief, her haunting performance as a fierce, protective mother who is tragically decapitated by the villainous Thulsa Doom served as the emotional catalyst for the entire film. The brutal and memorable scene became a cultural touchstone for the sword and sorcery genre, cementing her role's pivotal impact on the beloved Arnold Schwarzenegger blockbuster. Despite playing a fearless warrior woman and frequently being cast as a bold, extroverted sex symbol during the Spanish destape cinema era, Nadiuska was fundamentally a vulnerable, shy, and sensitive person. This stark contrast between her real personality and her on-screen image proved to be a heavy burden. As the cultural landscape of the 1980s shifted, she struggled immensely with being typecast as a mere object of desire, making it increasingly difficult for her to find meaningful work. When the roles inevitably dried up and producers stopped calling her career, experienced a rapid and agonizing decline. Stripped of the protective bubble of fame and lacking a strong support system, she faced severe professional and financial hardships that eventually pushed her out of the acting industry entirely by the late 1990s. The aftermath of her acting career brought devastating personal struggles as she suffered from severe financial ruin, homelessness, and was later diagnosed with schizophrenia. After years of wandering the streets of Madrid and living in precarious conditions, she was eventually taken in by the Hermanas Hospitalarias del Sagrado Corazón de Jesús, a psychiatric facility in Ciempozuelos, Madrid, where she finally received the medical care and tranquility she desperately needed. Her story recently resurfaced with a 2023 documentary series that re-evaluated her legacy with empathy. As of 2026, at the age of 74, Nadiuska remains living quietly at the psychiatric center in Ciempozuelos, far removed from the glaring lights of her past stardom, finding peace and stability in a highly private, structured environment. Time is the one enemy no warrior can defeat. Yet, looking at the cast today, their spirits seem as indomitable as ever. The bridge between 1982 and the present day is paved with incredible performances and lifelong legacies. We hope this look back has honored the warriors who once ruled the silver screen. If you enjoyed this nostalgic tribute, please leave a like and let us know in the comments which movie cast we should revisit next.